Good morning, Stampers. Welcome to Learning with Friends and welcome to Fun Fold Thursday. It is the last Thursday of February 2025 and the last Thursday I do a Fun Fold. So today I have one I'm going to share with you. It's called an Open Door Fun Fold. I saw this first at a Creative 8 retreat and I'm going to try to show you how to do it. It's going to look a little bit complicated, frankly. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. So let's go ahead and flip to my other camera and get started. All right, so this is my template that I made, and I strongly recommend that before you cut into your favorite paper, you grab something you don't really care about and make yourself a template. But I wanted to show you this because this is how it works. So here it's got a flap on the top, and when you open the flap, these little doors on the inside open. Alternatively, you can open the doors and your flap or your roof opens. It kind of looks like a little shed or a cabana or a front door of your house maybe. But what I'm mainly gonna focus on showing you today, I will show you 3 completed cards. We will complete 1 card. I do have part of the card we're gonna make already finished, the decorative part, let's say, so that we can spend our time focusing on how to make this particular fun fold. And I'm going to cut the cardstock for you here on the video because I think it's kind of important to see the cutting and the scoring because it will be helpful. Now I'm going to use basic beige. I chose a lighter color because I'm hoping it'll be easier for you to see. I know sometimes dark colors can get a little bit difficult to see. So the card we're going to make today, I'm going to use Storybook Friends, and you're probably saying, oh, she uses that every week. She's obsessed with it. I think I am. I love the Storybook Friends. They're so stinking cute. And they make such cute cards. So this tutorial is for one of the cards that I will show you. This is not the card we're going to make, but I used the beautiful butterflies. But I just wanted to show you these last 2 pages of this tutorial because this is where I define what you have to cut and score and some special little snip out things you have to do and how to assemble. And all the directions here are laid out for that on this tutorial. I will put this tutorial, I'll probably put the one for the card we're actually going to make, the Storybook Friends one. These other cards that I show you will show up on my blog at some point in time because I like to use these cards for more than just one purpose, right? I'm all about trying to save myself some work lately. So I'm going to get multi-use out of my cards that I make. So I'm going to follow this particular tutorial as we cut this basic beige, and I'll try to remember to show you step by step as we go. So the first step here is to cut the cardstock for the dimensions and the quantities shown. So we're going to just cut our pieces first. So the first piece, which I call the card base, that is this part here with this little roof. This is 5.5 by 5 3/4. So let's cut our piece of 5.5. Hopefully you can see this. This is the 5.5 mark up here. I know it's kind of hard to see, and I've got my camera a little bit further away, so hopefully you can see the cutting and the scoring. And now I'm going to turn this to 5 3/4, and we want this piece, so it will end up being 5.5 by 5 3/4. And you can probably guess that the 5.5-inch length, which we cut first, that's the width of our card because we're going to end up with a 5.5 by 4 1/4 card, our standard A2 size card here in the US. So we just cut the 5 3/4, and now along that 5 3/4 edge, we want to score it at 4 1/4. Duh, that's how we end up with our 5 1/2 by 4 3/4 card, right? So we'll just flip this back. We'll spend some time on these pieces more, but I'm just going to get them all cut first. The next piece we need doors, and that's these 2 little pieces here. So let's just cut those, and we need 2 of those, and they are 3 1/2 by 2. So I'm going to use some of my scraps here. So let's just cut this at 3 1/2. You can only get 1 out of this piece, but that's all right. We'll just use what we can. 3 1/2 by 2. Okay. And then we'll cut the other one here. We'll cut 2 over here by 3 1/2. And these are our 2 doors. No scoring required on those. And the last 2 pieces we need are the mechanisms. And these are 5 by 1 1/2, and we need 2. The mechanism is this piece that you see over here, that when you open the doors, it lifts the roof, or you lift the roof, it opens the doors. That's the 2 pieces I'm calling the mechanisms. And those, like I said, are 5 by 1 1/2. So let's just cut this at 5. And then we'll cut 2 of them at 1 1/2. And I'm going to use my trimmer for scoring today. Typically, I prefer, honestly, to use my Simply Scored tool. It just works easier for me, but this works fine. All right, so now each of these are 1 1/2, and we want to score down the center, which would be 3/4. And you can see that on the template here. Here's your 1 1/2. We're going to score each of these at 3 1/4. And you can just lay that. You want it to be in the center, so just pick a 3/4 on this side and a 3/4 on this side. If it's not exact, just get it in the center. Give that a good score. And then we'll do the same on this side at 3 1/4. One of the reasons I don't care about using my trimmer is because sometimes I get the wrong blade and then I slice it in half, right? So now the next thing we want to do is, let me just move this out of my way, and hopefully this shows up on the dark background. We are going to make tick marks at 1 1/2 inches down. So at 1 1/2 from the top down, we're going to make a tick mark on each side. So just use a pencil. Let me grab a ruler here and just make a little mark at 1 1/2. Usually I just use my grid paper, and I didn't put grid paper down. I was hoping that it would be clearer without the grid paper. Sometimes all those lines play with the camera and kind of make it difficult. So, all right, so we have our tick marks now at 1 1/2 down on each side of our little mechanism. And now what we're going to do is we are going to score from the tick mark to the opposite corner. So we're going to make an X, okay, on both of these. So to do that, you just line up the tick mark with your groove, and then the opposite corner with the groove. Get them aligned, both in the groove, and just score, okay? And then we're going to do the same thing the other way. So get this in your groove and your tick mark in your groove and score, okay? So we'll set that aside. We'll do the same thing on the second mechanism. Tick mark in the groove, corner in the groove, and score. And then in the opposite direction, just do the same thing. All right. And we should be done with cutting and scoring. So I'm going to put that out of the way. Now, on these mechanisms, we're going to snip out a section. And if you lay them side by side, you want to make sure you snip out the opposite section. Okay, so you can either snip out this one and this one, or these two inside ones. It doesn't matter, because you can flip it over so you end up with the right thing. So let's just do the outside ones, and I'll just scribble in here so we know. Lift this up and pulled out so you can see. So you can see which of the sections we're going to snip out. Grab my paper snips. And just cut these two out. Okay, and we'll do the same thing over here. And I'm just trimming in the groove or in the score line. If you're not exactly in it, that's fine. It's not critical. If anything, maybe cut off the whole score line. It may help in your folding. Okay. Now I like to erase my score line there, just for grins. I don't know why. It will show a little bit. So, or it has the potential to show. We do cover it with designer paper. But it has the potential, so I just like to kind of just get it out of there. And now we're going to take this, and if we lay the two pieces, these are going to go on each side of our card base like this. Okay, the short side is going to be this edge and this edge. We're going to bring them in and adhere it like this, but if you lay them upside down so that these go up, now we can put on some strong adhesive, and I'm going to use tear and tape. You could use liquid glue. Tear and tape seem to work well for me, so that's what I'm going to use. And we're just going to lay this down here and tear that off on that side. And then let's do the same on the other side, just to be consistent. You can see we do it on each side. And this is where I'm showing on page 2 of the tutorial, how you lay them. So you're going to lay them like this, with the short side next to your base and with your little tall piece away. And then you can see where the tape goes. And it goes down here, and it goes down along this little fold up here. Okay, so I'm going to put a little piece up there on both of them. And I'm putting it up here, I'm putting it right next to the fold. Sometimes it works better to cut. We can come back and trim once I take this off. And then let's put the other piece over here next to the fold. And grab my scissors. Okay. So now we have not burnished any of these. Let me just flip these over and trim off anything that's sticking out on both of these. Okay. Now it is important to take your bone folder, and you want to give all of these score lines a good crease. Maybe even flip them over and do it on both sides. Okay. On the mechanisms, the direction of the fold is if you were to lay this here, then you want to fold this back. Okay. If you forget that and you do it the wrong way, no worries. Once you lay it on your base, you'll know you did it the wrong way and just crease it back the other way. You want these nice and creased anyway, so if you take them and you do them in both directions, it's not going to hurt anything. All right, so now this was like this, and now this top piece up here, the way to remember how that goes is you're going to put this on here, and then you're going to fold this top piece over in this direction, kind of make a little L, because you want this, your tear tape, to be up when you put it in that location. And this is why I say make a template. It's very helpful. And then this piece is going to go in the opposite direction, I think. And again, if I get it in the wrong direction, when I start assembly, I will know I have it in the wrong direction. And that's the important thing to remember is don't worry too much about which way you do these, because if you get it wrong, then you can just flip it around as you're assembling. Because once you assemble, it'll become definitely more clear which way you want it to go. I have to think about it pretty much each and every time. Okay, and this is going to be this way on here. This is going to be this way. And I want this way. I'm pretty sure. If it's wrong, we'll fix it later. Doesn't matter. It'll go the other way just as easily. In fact, it probably doesn't even hurt to do them in both directions because you want that to be a little bit flexible. Now, all your tear tape, I would take your bone folder and just burnish it a little bit to make sure it's also adhered well to your mechanism. Okay. So now let's go ahead and assemble these mechanisms. And I'm going to kind of do this in steps because the first card I did, I assembled everything and had this completed. And you can certainly do it that way. You can go through and complete your whole fun fold and then come back and decorate. I just found it was a little easier if I decorated as I went, because things would lay flatter and it was easier to put the decorations on. So at this point, I'm going to show you the easy way, which to me means doing it in steps. So we're going to adhere this down. We will remove our tape. And line up this bottom edge and this edge with the bottom of your base and the side of your base. You're just going to line those up and give this a good burnish. Okay. And then we're going to do the same on the other side. If I can get the tape off. I am not very good with the take your pick tool. I don't use it that much, and I think I need to do a better job of practicing with it. Okay, so I'm lining this side up and I'm lining the bottom up. Do I have that right? I do. Okay. I burnished that one in the wrong direction, but see, it doesn't matter. Just burnish it again. Now, I also obviously didn't score this too equally. We will deal with that. It's not a big deal because these things get covered up. So now what I found is while I can still lay this flat, put your designer series paper or your embossed layer or whatever you're going to put to decorate your roof. Put that on there now. It's just easier while it's flat, because here, once you do this, it doesn't want to lay flat that well. So then you got to kind of do it up in the air. So I'm going to put this on here. And I tend to cut my items just a tad longer sometimes than they need to be, because I'd rather have them a little bit too long than too short, because I can always trim them off so that they come out nice and equal, right? All right, so this should cover that whole thing because it is the same size as the flap, which is 5.5 by 1.5, I believe. Here's my ruler. I'm pretty sure it's 1.5. Yep, 1.5. So this piece was 5.5 by 1.5, and all those dimensions are on the tutorial. They are on the front page of the tutorial. This is where all your dimensions are for cutting. The parts that go into the fun fold portion of it have diagrams as well, but here's your dimensions for all your designer series paper and so on. So if it hangs over just a little bit like mine does, because I tend to cheat long, because if I cheat short or I don't get it exact, then it's short and I see the card base. So I rather have it a little bit long, and I tend to do that whenever I use some sort of a decorative strip. I just make it a little bit long. Now the other piece that is easier to do are your decorative strips here on the outside of the card. And those measure 3/4 inch by 4 1/4. And again, you're going to see mine is long. I actually just clipped some stuff to 3/4 and didn't matter. I didn't even measure the length because I can flip that over. So let's go ahead and put those on there. I'm going to put this on with liquid just because gives me a little bit of a wiggle room. And you want to make sure this allows you to slide a little bit. Push it up here into your fold and into the fold on the doors. But you want to make sure this opens so that you don't get it in too far, okay? So if you use liquid adhesive, then it just makes that a little bit easier to move it if you have to. And we'll do the same thing here. I'm going to push it up against the fold if you want to like kind of hold this so you can see how far it goes. And the same thing here. Oops. And see how it slides? Yeah. And line this up on the outside edge here. And now we can flip these over. I can look to make sure they're aligned on the outside. If you have to trim a little off here, that's fine. Trim it off. Again, you may have to do that on a lot of these pieces because everybody's scoring is not precise. I know mine isn't. Maybe yours is, but mine definitely is not. It can be a little bit off. So don't worry if you have to do trimming. That is perfectly normal. Now you can see I've got a little edge here too on the back side. So I'm just going to take my snips. I will follow along the edge of my basic beige cardstock and just trim that off. I could pull my trimmer back and do it, but it's easier just to do it with the snips, I think. So there we are. So those pieces, and you can now start to see how this is going to work, right? But it's also easier to do your inside at this point because you have wide open access. Once you adhere this down to your flap, this wants to stay partially in. If I bring this in, you can see even if I open this up flat, I still got these things, these doors are kind of in the way. Impossible? No, of course not. You can still get it in there. My first card I did, I didn't do it that way. I made the complete fun fold and then decorated, but I learned. It's like, oh, it would be easier if I did this first. So I've already made my inside. Like I said, I'm using Storybook Friends, and the only stamping I've done is sentiments from that, actually. All the rest is the Storybook Memory cardstock. So we're just going to adhere this in there just to make things easy. And I'm going to go back to my seal. I'm a seal person by choice. I'm a liquid glue person by necessity sometimes. There are things that just sometimes work better with one or the other. The biggest advantage of liquid glue is, in my mind, is it gives you some wiggle room. You can slide things around. Okay, so now the inside is done. And now we can go ahead and let's go ahead and assemble the doors. So I have 2 doors, and these are both going to get covered with designer series paper as well. And I'm using the same paper for the doors that I put on the roof. You can use the same designer paper for everything, mix and match as you want. But we're just going to cover both sides of these doors with our designer series paper. And then I will show you how to assemble the doors. And I like to work in the horizontal. I tend to have better luck getting things straight. Don't know why, just works better for me. We all probably have ways that work best for us, right? And I hope I'm staying in the frame. I have such a tendency to want to pull the work towards me. I feel like I have better control when it's close to me. Okay, so now we have one of our doors done. Let's go ahead and do the other one. Okay, and the other side. And this is going to go this way, so I want it this way. I'm just looking, we got kind of one wider piece here. I want to use this side towards the front. So that's what I'm looking at when I'm looking at this. It certainly wouldn't matter. I could still do it the other way if I want it. All right, so now these actually, oh, I screwed up. I have to put one side on after. I wonder if I can get it off. If not, we will add a layer. Got ahead of myself. All right. Do you ever put down your paper and then say, oh, I shouldn't have put that down? Sometimes it peels right off. If you need to, if it's not peeling with Stamp and Seal, you can huff on it down into where the glue is, and that loosens it up a little bit. All right, now we can put this in here because I want to cover up that whole thing, right? Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to put some tear and tape along this edge that I'm going to tuck under here. And I want that facing in this direction. So let's just go add this. And we will do the same thing on this side. I'm going to tuck this one in like this. So I want my tear and tape here, and I'm pulling this towards me, so I'm trying to remember to get back in the center of the camera here. Okay. And maybe so you don't do what I did, maybe you just do your tear and tape first, and then you tape, and then you put your designer paper on both pieces. So I'm going to tuck this in here, and I'm going to line up the bottom, and I'm about pushing it up towards the fold, but just check it to make sure when you fold this down that that it's not in too far. Okay. And then I got to be careful because I still have some sticky on this side from where I tore it off. So I have to give myself a little bit of a disadvantage here. So don't do what I did. Do what I say, not what I do. My mom used to say that all the time. Do what I say, not what I do. All right, so this side, we're going to tuck that in there as well. Line it up down here across the bottom and give it a good push. And there's your doors. Okay. So now we can add our designer series paper back. I am going to see if I can do it. They're still pretty sticky. Let me see if I can do it without adding more tape. Line this up along the bottom. Make sure you leave enough room here for your fold, that these two pieces aren't fighting. You may have to, like I said, you may have to trim just a little bit because these folds don't always come out perfectly. I hate to say it, but they just don't. I've made multiples of these now, and I have yet to have one come out perfectly. So don't worry about that. Just make sure when you open it that you might need a little tiny gap here so your cardstock will fold. Okay. So, and I don't know if you can see it, but you probably can. There's a little edge here that I see that didn't get covered. So I'm just going to take my snips. If they were closer in color, if it was closer to the old olive color of the designer paper, I'd probably leave it alone. But since I'm using basic beige, it shows a little bit more. So we'll just trim that off. And how's the other side? Do I need to do it here too? Yeah, a little bit. Nothing ever gets cut exactly, right? All right, guess I might have to get closer to me here. It's hard to do this out in space. All right, I think you can see what I'm doing. I'm getting it, just trimming off that little piece. Trying not to trim the designer paper. All right, so now we basically have our fun fold completed. But we don't have this attached. We don't have our mechanism done yet. So what we want to do is fold this open. Okay. I'm going to give them a good burnish again, just in case I got them in the wrong direction the first time. Had the one over here was wrong. So now we're going to remove our tear and tape off from here. And again, you could use liquid adhesive. This just tends to work better, I believe. You need strong adhesive. And now we're going to close this over top of that, and we're going to give a good press where that tape is. And see how it opens up now? Isn't that fun? It's a fun fold. If you want to come in here and kind of give this another good burnish in here, just to make sure that that tear and tape you just put on there is well adhered, you can. It's a good idea. Okay, so Now we need something on the front though. And I have a little piece that I am going to put right here. I have this already completed. This is also made with the Storybook Friends. And this cute little guy here with his radish was cut from one of the sheets of designer series paper. I just cut him out so that he fit behind the frame. I cut him a little bit bigger and then I went back and figured out how, because I didn't want his whatever was out here showing, so I cut that out. This frame is one of the dies from Storybook Friends. The Storybook Friends dies come with 3 different frames. I could have used any one of them. There's an oval. This is the one I used, the square one here. Hadn't used this one yet, so I wanted to play with it. And then there's one that's kind of like a little bit of an arch with some decorations on the top. Lots of dies in here to cut out all these little critters. Some of them will cut out the images on the Storybook Memories designer series paper. But let's go ahead and attach this. So I just assembled this. This is Calypso Coral, layer of white, and then I adhered that directly to the white, and then I popped the frame up, which was die cut with that die on dimensionals. And I like to put this, obviously we can only attach it to the roof because it needs to come up. I like to adhere it with dimensionals. You don't have to, there's already a lot of dimension on here, but that's just my personal preference. I am a dimensional-aholic. So the way I did this, so I know where to easily put them, is I just kind of centered it side to side here on the doors. And I took my dimensionals and I laid them so that they would be inside of my outside edges here along the edge. Because if I don't do this and I just go ahead and stick down these dimensionals, I'll go to put this on and I'll have half a dimensional out here like this. That's a personal problem. You probably don't have that problem. And on this one, again, I could put them on here, but I'd probably have them half hanging off down here, and now they're going to seal it shut. So this is just my little trick of how to know where to put these. I kind of lay it down here so I can see where they go, and it works for me. You do what works for you. Sometimes my tricks might help you. Sometimes you might have a better trick. If you have a better trick, leave me a comment. I'd love to know how you guys line up your stuff. Maybe you just eyeball it and are better at it than I am. So there we go. I can give these, I got 6 of them on there, so that's going to hold well. And there is our completed card. Lift our roof, the door opens, you can see the inside, or you can have it here. You can open the door and the top flips up by itself. That's the mechanism does all that work. So there is our Storybook Friends card. I did go ahead and make an envelope. As you probably all have figured out by now, my favorite way to do an envelope is just to cover the flap with some coordinating paper. You can stamp on an envelope, you can do whatever you like to do for your envelope. But let me show you the other 2 cards. The next card I'm going to show you I made with the beautiful butterfly stamp set, which is this one. I've been playing with a lot with this one the last couple weeks, and there's dies that go with it. Again, very little stamping on this one. I use mainly the dies, just the little butterfly dies, and so handy. There are like 2 of them. There's 2 bodies that go with those. So if you're making multiples, it minimizes the number of times you have to run it through your machine. And then this one I kept all white, with the exception I used some brushed silver cardstock for the doors. And I used the same brush silver for the little butterflies. I embossed the sentiment with silver embossing powder. That is from the Beautiful Butterflies, this sentiment. And then on the inside, I just kept it very simple. I used some different embossing folders on here, out here on the edges, to make it look a little bit like a house. I used exposed brick for the roof. We'll call this the roof. I used Dashing Designs, I think is the name of that one. Let me double check that for you. I don't have all these things memorized. You'd think I could remember them, but I can't. Dashing Design embossing folder. I use that up here. And then this beautiful butterfly stamps bundle includes a hybrid embossing folder, and it has butterflies on it, which has a die that also will cut those out, and they're embossed. So, but I just embossed my little piece. So I've got 3 different embossing folders. And then when I opened it up, I also used the exposed brick embossing folder here on the side, just added a little strip of silver, like on the inside of the doors. And I didn't know how many butterflies I was going to have for the front. I made 4. I thought I was going to put 3 on the front and 1 on the inside. But as I got the 2 on, I'm like, no, 3 is going to be way too many. It's not big enough. So I used 1 there on the inside, and then I stuck the leftover 1 here on my envelope flap. I embossed this with the same Dashing Designs embossing folder. So there's card number 2. And card number 3 was made with the Spring Corners bundle. This is an online exclusive that came out in January, I believe. I think I used this last week with the balloons on the template time, or maybe it's 2 weeks ago. On template time, I used it, so probably 2 weeks ago. And these are some corner sentiments. It also has some really unique dies. So for my card, I used this die. Now, this was a little tedious. It seemed like a really good idea before I started doing it, and I love how it turned out. But I used this die, and I cut my basic white cardstock, and then I used this same die and die cut some glimmer paper, and these are the in colors. This is Pretty in Pink, and this is Summer Splash, I believe. Might be Emerald. What's the other one? In Colored Glimmer. They're from the In Colored Glimmer. Yes, the leaves are Summer Splash. And so I took the little pieces that I cut out that with this die, and I then inlaid them into the flowers. Now, for the centers, I used some white glimmer paper that we had at Christmas time. I didn't check to see if it's still available, but I colored it with Daffodil Delight to give the centers a little. I wanted yellow in the center. I didn't want pink or green. I could have used the Pretty in Pink, but I thought yellow just popped it up a little bit. So that is how I decorated this one. And this is all Country Woods Designer Series paper. And on the inside, I used a couple more of those spring corner dies and just decorated the corners. So actually I used 3 different Designer Series paper. They're all from Country Woods, but 3 different patterns. There's this striped one, which is my favorite, I used on the roof. Thought that looked good for a roof. This is kind of my flower shed, I figured. And then here, I just used some of the darker brown. And then this is the Pool Party kind of aged weathered. And I used the Pool Party aged weathered on my envelope as well. So those are my 3 cards. I hope you like that. I hope the fun fold made sense on how to make it. Even though I screwed up, we were able to fix it. No big deal. Everything can be fixed, right? You get a smudge. Great place for a gem. we just work around those. So I hope you like that. I hope you give it a try. I do recommend that you make yourself a little template first. Be sure to download the tutorial and it'll come through. Probably it should be there by the time you're done watching this video. I have to go upload it, but I'll do it quickly. And I'm going to upload the one for the card that we made today with the Storybook Friends, okay? And the other two will appear probably within the next week or 2 or 3. So if you follow my blog at all, fearlessstampandflair.com, you'll be able to get tutorials for each and every one of them that show you how to do it. And that's true with anything I put on my blog. So check out fearlessstampandflair.com and you'll find tons of tutorials and they're all free to download. So I hope you liked that. If you liked it, will you give me a thumbs up? That would be great. Share it with your friends, and because it's more fun to learn with friends than learn by ourselves. So have a great weekend. God bless, and we will see you next week with another technique. I don't know what it is. I have to go look. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to, I'm hoping I'm going to be able to continue these for the next month. I'm having construction in my crafting area and we're doing some updates, and depending on if I find another good place to craft and particularly to make these videos, we may have to miss a couple. I'm hoping not. I'm going to try to work around it. I'll do my best, but things might look a little different and you might see a different background and it may be a little messy. Who knows? I'm sure it's going to be messy before it gets better. Construction is always so much fun, right? But anyway, have a great day and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.